Good evening. I will call to order the Finance Committee meeting on March 3rd, 2025 at 7 p.m. We have two items on the agenda this evening. Communication from City Council President Ossing with the proposed amendment to the Municipal Aggregation Order number 19-100-7578B. Also a communication from Mayor Dumas with the transfer request in the amount of $626,812.24 from PEG funds to fund operation and capital budgets of WMCT-TV for FY 2026. We'll go with the communication from Mayor Dumas with the transfer request in the amount of $626,812.24 first from PEG funds to the Marlboro Cable Trust to fund the operating and capital budget of WMCT-TV for FY 2026. Also a reminder to the council that President Ossing did read his letter of conflict of interest into the record, and that was on our February 24th, 2025 City Council meeting. I'll begin by reading the letter from the Mayor. Dear Council President Ossing and councilors, enclosed for your review and acceptance is a transfer request in the amount of $626,812.24 for Marlboro Public Educational Government Access Channels, the PEG funds, to fund the WMCT-TV operations and capital budgets. As you may recall, the fiscal year for WMCT-TV runs from April 1st to March 31st. Enclosed letter from the WMCT-TV Executive Director Ryan Miliar details what these funds will support in the coming year, which will include some exciting capital budget expenditures for the updating and replacing City Council chamber and school committee room broadcast equipment. Executive Director Miliar has brought in several new and exciting programs over the last year and has managed to decrease his operations budget due to payroll savings. He and his dedicated team continue to provide high-quality programming to our residents and to our city. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me or my office with any questions. J. Christian Dumas, Mayor. Good evening, Director. You would like to open up and say a few words on your budget, and then I'll open it up to the Finance Committee.
Hi, Councillor. It's so good to see you, and especially over the past few years, it's been great to see more and more of you, especially as you've gotten involved producing some content at the studio as well. It's been really terrific to have you there. The budget is pretty straightforward. I really pride myself in how detailed it is. We really track our finances really well. As was noted in the letter from the mayor, there is a slight decrease in our operations budget. We had previously budgeted for another part-time employee, but our current staff is managing the workload relatively well, so we didn't see the need to fill that position. The major change that you will see is that our capital budget is greatly increased from previous years, and it's detailed in pretty good detail what those costs are for. And that is really to improve the technology infrastructure that we have in this room, where we are right near. This right here, this is sort of the heart of our operations. Government transparency is what PEG Access is really known for, is bringing that level of government awareness to the local community, where the larger state programs and local news affiliates aren't picking this up, you know? So it's improvements in audio quality. It's adding an additional camera that can capture a full vote in the room. Those votes happen pretty quickly, and right now our staff, Garrett in there, tries to pan the room very quickly when a vote passes by, and it's been noted to us many times over the years. How can you get everyone voting? Can you get us all? So it's little things like that we're hoping to address. The technology that we're running in that room is no longer up to date, and they don't even keep up maintenance for any of the technology that we're using right now. So it's swapping out older technology with newer technology. Nothing that will really blow the roof off of anything in here. We're going to, of course, consult with anyone who might have a mind for maintaining the historic aesthetic of the room, because I know that's been a conversation in the piece in the past in terms of how to continue to have the technology that we have without ruining the beauty that we have in this room. So it should be minimally invasive, and it should really provide just greater quality of coverage going forward, and similar changes are being anticipated for the room where school committee meetings are held as well.
Thank you, Joe. Now I'll open it up to the City Council, Councilor Orem.
Thank you. Brian and I had a few minutes to talk before the meeting, but one of the conversations I was having with him is the same item I bring up all the time, is the contributions to the PEG funds from Comcast as well as Verizon, and we're at the present value, the present transfers and available is $937,000. So the request for this funding would be fine in respect to that, but our discussion was ended because we had to get started, but is the future of PEG funds. And I myself feel guilty because I switched off and went to streaming, and I still pay Verizon a little bit of money, but it's concerning that, where that may go. And Ryan, I don't know if the industry has talked to you about that and what might be out there to try to recapture some of this funding.
So I'm in this industry because I believe in it. I was introduced to community media as a child, as a host on a show called Kids Corner in Piscataway, New Jersey, where I was given wonderful opportunities as a youth. I love what we can do for the community. The model of where people receive that information is changing. We see how quickly print media is disappearing. Think of how many local newspapers there used to be in Marlborough and what we have now. I feel like the content, and I believe the content that we produce is valuable. It's valuable in terms of, like I said earlier, government transparency, but it's also valuable in terms of history and the archiving of what goes on in this city. We think of the Historical Society and Commission and what they do digging up the past, but we are creating and archiving that history right now, so it's not going to be too difficult 100 years from now to find all of this information, this capture of everyday life. So I value what we're creating, however, the model is antiquated. So what do we do about it? If this is our source of revenue, if it disappears, then we will not, if cable disappears, then does WMCT disappear, or are we still valued in a way that there is supplemental funding somewhere in the city that can support us? That's just a big question, and I don't have any answers to it. What I can speak on is what's being done in the state, and there have been previous attempts to pass similar versions of this bill, and it's called an Act to Modernize Funding for Community Media. And what this would do is it would put a fee on streaming services. There are many other states across America that are already taxing streaming services. This is a little bit different because it has PEG access operations in its heart and in its mind. It would essentially establish a nexus so that any fees put on these streaming services will be reserved specifically to be integrated back into the PEG funds that have already been set up for these community television studios to operate. They're approximating that it would be a similar tax to a similar fee to what's imposed on cable television. The max cap for that is 5%, so we're sort of looking that maybe that would be the model that would happen. This didn't pass last year. There was some negative attention, so they pulled it before it would have a no vote attached to it. But now, entering into this legislative session, we already have some progress with it, so hopefully it's already at a point where it can just continue to push forward, and we'll see where it goes.
Thank you. And if I can just, a couple more, I see Council Vital has questions too. Just a couple more notes, and I appreciate your value to what you do, as well as your answers to my question on the PEG funds. And I, as a customer, would be more than glad to pay the 5% on my streaming service, because I left cable. It was a better deal, but I would be more than happy, and I'm sure most people, if they see the value, would be in the same category. Just a couple, rental expenses I noticed went up a little bit, not bad. It looks like a very small percentage, but we got to remember that you're in the open market for renting. So the telephone internet went up a little bit. Is that just doing business cost, or was there anything new?
We've added an additional hotspot that allows us to stream from remote locations for areas where we're not able to plug directly into the internet.
And utilities, is that electric, or is that, you don't pay heat, do you, at that building? Is that your rent, the heat, versus?
No, we do,
So
it's all factored in with
So your
electric.
utilities could be the cost of the heat and so forth
Oh,
as
it's
well?
absolutely the heat.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm in favor of this. I would motion to approve when it comes to the end of discussion. I see no problem. I like the fact you're improving your equipment. You had a 10-year review done with the consultant. It makes sense. I mentioned to you, I'm very glad to see that cable will be available to people that are hearing impaired, as well as within this room and so forth, as well as the school committee and the city council will get better coverage. So fantastic. We need that transparency. Boy, you hit that right on the button. I'm with you 100% on that. And just one small note. When I was a Ward 6 councilor back in 1990, this is kind of interesting, I sat where our council president's sitting right now, because the Ward 7 councilor ended up being president. So I ended up in the Ward 7 seat, and guess what was sitting right next to me? And I was a new councilor. The TV camera, and it was a good size one, and I had to stand up, and I remember, and we had microphones we had to hold back in those days, and my hands would be shaking because as a new counselor, it was a little nerve-wracking having a TV camera right on your nose. Now, maybe I speak too freely in here because I forget there's cameras in here, but it's amazing how far we've gone in technology. And again, thank you. I support your budget. I would make a motion to approve, not to stop any other discussion, but that would be my motion.
Motion's been made, and I will second that, to approve order number 25-100-9375, transfer request in the amount of $626,812.24 from PEG funds to Marlboro Cable Trust to fund the operating and capital budget of WMCT-TV for FY 2026. Any further discussion? Council Vital.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We talked about PEG funds. Could you kind of explain it to the people at home what that, is that a tax?
I would be thrilled to explain it to everyone. So it's considered a fee because similar to what we were hoping to impose, it has a direct transaction where it is issued directly to the city of Marlboro. So I'll try to give my nutshell version of what cable access is. Picture it, 1982, Marlboro. That's my Golden Girls for you. So charter cable comes, there's already telephone poles, but they say, we want to bring cable to the citizens of Marlboro. And it's already been established at this point that the cities and the communities are saying, well, what's in it for me? And it's really held in high regard that we want to be able to deliver this local level of transparency, these opportunities for residents to have locally produced content and this platform on this hot stuff, which is cable TV. So this is sort of worked into almost every contract that they're going to provide some sort of support, either monetary. Back in the day, they were even providing their own sort of studio setups. So that's how we got started in this business back in the day. The models have changed over the years. So you might notice that if you look at the sheet of transfers, it's only 2017. So that is when the city accepted a new law that would say that each community can establish a PEG account, which is where that money is transferred to, and money is transferred out by appropriation. So how are we faring with Comcast and Verizon now? We received 3 specific types of payment from them. So for Verizon, we're currently in a 5-year contract that started in 2023. And in that contract, we negotiated for 1 additional channel. So we have 1 high-definition channel, which is a simulcast of this government channel. So we have our standard 3 channels plus 1 in HD. And we received from them 4.825% gross revenue, quote, for PEG access channel operating support or other PEG access channel costs and expenses. We also received from them a grant. It's called a PEG grant, totaling $232,500 dispersed over 3 years. So we've received 2 of those payments already in this 5-year contract, each for $77,500, quote, to be used for PEG access channel capital funding purposes. And we also received one weird sort of thing, which is a license fee, which is 50 cents per subscriber per year. Very unique. Comcast is very similar, although we were in a 10-year contract with Comcast starting in 2016. So that's up for renewal in 2026. We already have legal counsel that is assisting us through that negotiation process. We currently have 3 channels from them. We don't have an HD channel. 4.825% gross annual revenue, quote, for PEG access purposes. And our capital funding from them was not too hot back then, 10 years ago. We received $156,019. At that time, it was prioritized that the fiber connections that we have between this building and the studio, between where school committee is held and the studio, those are direct lines that we actually have. So even if the internet should go down, if cable is up, we can still transmit from here or from the studio onto cable TV, which is great for any sort of emergency that we might have. So that was prioritized at the time. But that capital funding is, quote, capital funding for PEG access equipment and or facilities, and also we get that license fee of 50 cents per subscriber. So that's how we're doing with it.
So these PEG funds are negotiated.
They are negotiated.
Between the Comcast or Verizon
Yep.
and the city.
And the city. So WMCT-TV or Marlboro Cable Trust is never mentioned by name in any of these contracts because we're considered the PEG access designee. So that is what we've established in our long history with the city, but is also the city's prerogative that if we were not doing our responsibility, that they could issue it to another organization to run similar services.
So the YouTubes of the world, the other streaming, they don't have to negotiate with the city at all.
No.
Though there are many subscribers in the city that are now using those services.
So,
That's
point of
correct.
information. So,
President Austin.
so Councilor Vital, let me help you. So, this is mandated by Congress. So, you can call it a fee, you can call it a tax, but Congress says if you're going to have a cable station, they're going to be paying something into public television. Congress hasn't figured out how to get onto the streaming service yet. It's coming. As Councilor Navin pointed out, your cable box that you sit and you have at your house, they're going to go after that here shortly. All right, so it's coming. But if your question is it a tax or a fee? You can call it what you want. It's a tax that I have to pay to use the cable system, whether you like it or not.
Right.
That's the deal. Councilor Orm, if you feel guilty, you can write Mr. Ryan a check anytime. He'll be the happiest guy on the planet to take it. So I don't think you're going to feel that guilty for not using the cable system.
And that's a good point, Mr.
Just one more
President.
question.
Yeah.
So this negotiated fees or taxes, as Mr. Ossing points out, has a trend for that money that comes to the city, is the trend about the same or is it going down every year?
You can look at the sheets of...
Some has been down because of people cutting their cable bill.
Yes. So I've pulled some numbers, and the state maintains subscriber numbers, but the city itself maintains the revenue, the actual money, the deposits of the numbers. So 2015 was our best year for subscriber numbers. We had 13,833 cable subscribers in the city of Marlboro. That's Comcast and Verizon combined. 2023 is the most recent year that I have access to. That's 7,179. That's a 48% dip in cable subscribers. That's 6,654 less subscribers. However, if we look at, I've added up the years just by income coming in on the sheet that we have here. And although it looks like our best year was 2017, we had $500,000. 2018,
Again,
$815,000.
point of information, I am interrupting. Believe the councilor's question was, has the fee that's charged per user changed or decreased over time? We know the users have decreased over time. So the fee that's charged on that cable bill, has it stayed the same or has it increased? I believe that's your question, Councilor.
Actually, I was talking more about about the trend that we have for operation expenses.
Well, the users are going down. If the users go down, we collect less money unless someone who I don't know who changes the fee structure. And I believe the fees have stayed the same. Ryan, you can tell me if they've changed.
It's hard to dig back that far. I don't have all of those cable contracts. I'm sure the city could provide them. I believe that when we renewed the Verizon contract, the previous renewal was also at 4.825%, but I don't know what the capital was for the previous 5 or 10 year contract.
My dad always said, don't ask a question unless you know what the answer was. And most of those questions I asked, I kind of knew the answer already. But it's important for the people at home to understand what's happening here in the city. The trend is that as the money that's used for the operation of our local access channels is going down every single year. And if my forecasting is correctly, in a couple of years, it could be almost to a point where there would have to be some serious cuts to the studio. And I think that, our citizens of Marlboro, if they like their local access channel, they should get more actively involved with their local legislator at the state level to try to pass something that's going to spread out the taxes, as Mr. Ossing said. That's all I got. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? It carries 5-0. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Next up is order number 25-100-9358, communication from City Council President Ossing with proposed amendment to municipal aggregation order number 19-100-7578B. Good evening, President Ossing.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
I'll let you fill in the blanks and have the floor, Mr. President.
Do you want to read the letter, or do you want me to? Do you want to read the letter? I'm happy to read the letter.
Oh, you can read the letter, Mr. President.
Hey.
Thank you.
Dear City Council members, the Municipal Aggregation Committee met on January 30th, 2025, and discussed updating the current order for municipal aggregation to reflect the advances in the municipal aggregation process. The primary change is to remove, and I'm quoting, "on a yearly average be lower than the National Grid basic service rate during the same period," unquote. This is being revised to read, "will focus on obtaining rates that are lower than National Grid basic service rate." The reason for the change includes, since the DPW changed the end-grid buying dates for electricity, the changes in electricity pricing will not be as drastic as we've seen in the past. Reviewing other municipal programs, the programs focus on obtaining rates that are lower than National Grid, not requiring them to be lower than National Grid. Obtaining long-term rates, 24 to 36 months, provides participants in the program with stability and predictability. Being able to forecast when the National Grid rate may be lower than the city rate may not always be achievable when obtaining long-term contracts. If the National Grid rate is less than the city rate, residents in the program can opt out at any time. The Municipal Aggregation Committee supports the above change as shown in the attachment and recommends the City Council approve the change. Councilors, I put a short presentation in front of you. I'll just go through that quick. So the purpose is to amend the order to reflect the advances in the municipal aggregation program and to take advantage of market conditions to secure favorable electrical supply contracts. So the current wording, the first part on what we're looking to do is remove the words "and on a yearly average be lower than," and we're going to replace that with "to participants in the program. Additionally, the Municipal Aggregation Committee will focus on obtaining rates that are lower than National Grid's basic service rate." The history, program started in 2007. The initial order that we had said it required us to be lower than National Grid. That meant we had to go out to bid every 6 months, because in order to be required to be less, you had to know what National Grid's rate, which was good, but the problem is everybody that was bidding on the program knew what National Grid's rate was as well, so we didn't get much of a savings. So from 2007 to 2019, those 12 years, we saved about $4.2 million. In 2019, we changed it to be on a yearly average, be less than National Grid. The program saved $32.3 million in those 4 years, actually a little less than 4 years. So being able to go out for a long-term contract has served the city extremely well. But there was no guarantee when the longer-term contracts were entered into that we'd be less than National Grid. We used the best information we had at the time and could try to forecast that we'd be lower than National Grid. And so far, we've done fairly well. So I read the reasons for changing. I just read them in the letter, so I won't repeat those. What I do want to bring to your attention, so Colonial Power has 93 municipalities that they deal with for municipal aggregation programs. And their contract lengths vary from 7 months to 36 months. As you can see in the chart, there's 4 with 7-month contracts, 3 with 8, 1 with a 10-month contract, 1 with a 14-month, 5 that have an 18-month. The 22 is your fabulous city of Marlborough. 63 of the communities have a 2-year contract, 1 has 26, 2 have 30, and 12 have 36-month contract lengths. So one asks, okay, so of those 93 municipalities, I said, well, what are their rates and how do they compare with National Grid? So the National Grid winter rate, which ran from August of last year to January of this year, all 93 communities did a good job. They all had a rate that was lower than the National Grid rate. The summer rate that we're in right now, it goes from February to July, 34 municipalities have higher rates, 59 municipalities have lower rates. And of course, we're one of the ones that have a lower rate. So of course, the question then comes, that I ask National Grid, do people bail out of the program? Because again, the National Grid rate changes every 6 months. And the answer is no. Their data, and it happens with the other contractors that have other muni ag programs, because people are looking for stability and predictability in their electric rates. If they want to get out, they can. The challenge is, once you find out what the National Grid rate, and you submit the paperwork to change your rate, it takes 2 months for the thing to catch up, and then by the time you think you're seeing the savings, and the savings you're talking about, and I'm going to go in a minute, are about $6 a month, depending on the rate that the municipality is saving or negotiated, isn't really much of a big deal. And then you get lost, you get shortchanged when the rate goes down because you got to go now change back. So participants do not leave the municipal aggregation programs when the National Grid rate changes. This is because the stability and predictability of the supply portion of the bill outweighs the small amount of savings that may be seen. So how is Marlboro done with our new contracts, right? So we've got First Point Power, we have a 22-month contract, we've got a fixed rate of 0.1415, and it runs from January 2024 till October of this year. So the National Grid rate from January 2024 to July was 18 cents, and the Marlboro rate was 14 cents. That's good, we were lower. The last year's winter rate, which went from August 2024 to January 2025, the rate was 16 cents, Marlboro rate was 14. Again, we were lower. Then the National Grid summer rate, which we're in right now, which goes February 2025 to July 2025, the Marlboro rate is 14 cents, 14.1, and the National Grid rate is 14.6. So we're just slightly under what National Grid's rate. So if you're going to ask me what's going to be in the winter rate when it gets set in August, I don't know. National Grid's going to set it. I don't know. I'm hoping it's lower. I mean, we looked at the forecast. Councilor Navin, Councilor Scott, Commissioner Scott, Christy Holme, and the mayor, we all get the best data we can and try to make a good decision. Do I think it's going to be lower? Yeah, Marlboro would be lower for the next one. So that's good. So the municipal aggregation will continue to focus on obtaining rates that are lower than National Grid. Marlboro residents will have the price stability and predictability for the electrical supply portion of the bill. Marlboro residents always have the ability to opt out of the program if they want to. They can do that. So I recommend finance approve the changes to the existing order. So just to, I figured I'd highlight one example. Of the 34 towns that were higher than the national grid rate during the winter or summer rate last 6 months ago, the highest one had a 16-cent contract. It was a 24-month contract that they entered into. I mean, they beat the 18 cents for the winter portion, but the 16 cents is higher than the 14 cents now. That averages an additional $8 per month, or $48 over the 6-month period that one town is paying. There's no mass exodus from the program, from their residents, because it's just not happening. So, again, I encourage the councilors to support the change, because if you don't support the change, it's okay, but if I come back and tell you we weren't less than National Grid on a yearly average, what are we gonna do? There's nothing we can do. So this is really an attempt to just correct the order to reflect the best practices, which is to let the committee do the best job they can to get rates that are lower than National Grid. We'll try, but it's really the stability and predictability that we're really striving for. And we've done real well in when we changed the order back in 2019, and I don't see any changes going forward.
Thank
With that,
you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll open it up to questions from the councilors.
Thank you, President Austin. Council Vital.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President, how many residents are in the program right now?
I think we have,
Approximately.
I think it's 11,000, but that's about 2,000 of them are industrial and commercial customers, I think. I'd have to go
And they
back.
can get out anytime. Can they go in anytime, or is there once a year?
So when you move to Marlboro, you automatically get entered into the program. You're told about it, and you have the opportunity to opt out. So you're automatically put into the program. Actually, the first month or two, you're typically on National Grid because it's called sweeping. So every 3 months, they sweep the program, and then everybody that's moved into town, we put you on the municipal aggregation program. And then if you want to get out, because you get a card that says, "Dear Mr. Vital, welcome to Marlboro. You're now in the municipal aggregation program. If you want to get out, just let us know and we'll take you out."
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you,
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Chairman.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to thank President Ossing and Councilor Navin and the Municipal Aggregation Committee for compiling this information for us periodically. It's very helpful to see. I think the change makes sense, and it's a wording change. So with that, I would move to approve the change.
Motion's been made. I will second that to approve order number 25-100-9358. Communication from President Ossing with the proposed amendment to municipal aggregation order. Any further discussion? Councilor Navin. Councilor Navin.
Anyways, the quick question is this, and great job. It's nice to see that we can compete for better electric rates. I also use natural gas, and it's not easy to take those bills right now. Are there any communities that are looking at the same type of program for natural gas?
So the state hasn't authorized what I call a municipal gas program versus a municipal aggregation program. So they don't have that right now, Council Orem. So there's been talk about it, but nothing. I'm sure that what the legislature's going through right now might spur some more activity, but I won't go into the whole thing. The issue is getting gas to New England. The supply port, you just can't get it here. So it's just hard. Unlike electricity, it's flowing everywhere. You just can't get gas. We're getting all our gas basically from overseas in tankers.
Thank you for your answer.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilor Navin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not on the committee, but I do support this. I want to thank the president for the work that you've done on this. I will challenge one assertion by the folks at Colonial. I'm not sure that the average homeowner is looking for the stability and predictability. It could be like in my house where we're not sure how many subscription services we have and how hard it is to cancel them. National Grid doesn't make it very easy to get off and get back on, but I do think that, the way the order has worked and people are confident in the work that's been done. You've done a great job making sure that people know what is happening. The quarterly updates, I think, are really important, that we give folks And they should feel comfortable that if we do get into the position in the future, we will be very forthcoming with the fact that the rates are not the same, and that they are able to opt out. But I do think that, people have full confidence that the city is working hard to make sure that the rates are advantageous, because it's advantageous for us as well as it is for the general public. So, and it is worth highlighting, you mentioned it in the letter, but, this is an effort that DPU is putting forth to make sure that rates are smoother for everybody at home, so we don't see the sticker shocks that Councilor Orm just referenced on the gas side. Although your rates are getting cut for a couple of months, although they'll be recouping it for you over the next 6 months following. So, it is, utilities are expensive. And so this is a good effort to make sure that people know we are continuing to make that fight. So, thank you.
And I'll just add, Council Navin, that it is, if you want to get out of the program, it's literally a click on the Colonial Power website to get out. You can contact the mayor's office, and it's all on the city's website, but if you want to get out of the program, you can. I mean, it's...
All the services at our house are very easy to get out of as well, and I can tell you that every month that goes by, I still have not canceled them. and that's no comment. That's a comment on my own laziness. That's not mentioning for people in the city. So,
Thank you, Councilman. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? It carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for the information. I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, motion to adjourn.
Motion is made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor? We are adjourned at 7:36 PM. Thank you.